So you're bored of Outlaw, or maybe you just don't want to be like everyone else. Well, don't worry my friend, because the insane Rogue spec is doing amazing in 8.2, and I'm talking about Assassination. So you've come to the right place, because in today's video you will learn about the talents, gear, rotation, essences, and a lot more tips and tricks for you to go into raids and dungeons. But now before clicking that notification bell, hey! The guide will focus more on the basics and fundamentals of Assassination while providing you a build for raids and dungeons that's doing work at the high-end mythic level. There are alternations and things you can swap in and out as you get more comfortable with the rogue, however. Starting with the first row, since, what other row? Can you even go from the middle? Who wrote this shit? Elaborate planning is what you should pick, something the scriptwriter clearly needed more of. The first row is not very versatile in terms of options, and as far as pure DPS increase goes, elaborate planning is performing the best. It's passive and you shouldn't worry about it. The more haste you essentially end up with, the more uptime you will have on this baby. Second row gives you two options, and both perform almost identical in single target and in AoE. It comes down to your personal preference and what you can sim if you want to take it that far. I would personally recommend Subterfuge. It works well with a particular trait that you will get in Mythics and adds an interesting spin to your rotation that you will love. More on that later. To keep things simpler, you can take Master Assassin instead, but keep in mind it will start to fall off when you gear heavily towards AoE, since the trait you will want will not synergize as well with this one. It could start doing a lot more damage once you reach mythic level rating, but that's something you will check once you get there. Third row is another row that has similar value for a few options, although they play differently. The main one you should take is Vigor. Vigor is simple, works just a bit better than the other options such as Stratagem, which you can choose. Personally, I find the consistency and smoothness of Vigor to make me enjoy Assassination more. The fourth row is a defensive-oriented row. By default, you should get Cheat Death. Not only will this let you deal with oh shit situations that you did not see coming, but it will let you deal with oh shit situations that you did see coming. You can essentially soak and do mechanics that will kill someone else, or simply prevent an unforeseen death because you alt tap to switch to your hardcore Taylor Swift playlist. It's okay, we know. Fifth row is the utility / crowd control / rogues are good for other things than damage row. The default option is Iron Wire, especially with the build I will be suggesting. Garrote will be one of your main CCs, and you can use it to prevent casting, essentially delaying mechanics otherwise annoying to deal with. Paired with Vanish, and the Subterfuge talent can let you deal some wonderful things both in terms of DPS and CC in Mythics. Level 90 brings the fan favorite, the creme of the crop, Toxic Blade. The skill is an extra button to press on cooldown. It has an interesting effect, and in terms of damage it will be your best bet. But the usage is simple. Is it available? Then press it, as long as you don't cap on combo points. Exsanguinate is an interesting option and sadly is not turning any heads. It changes your rotation and priority, so I would recommend staying away from it unless you know what you're doing. Last row, Poison Bomb. This talent is amazing, and the way you get to pop it is, RNG, just RNG. Yeah, you don't even think or manage anything about it. Play normally and it will happen. Don't get me wrong, it's a cool skill and deals decent damage. There's a point to be made about hidden blades in dungeons. However, this will require a lot more specific gear build-up that we won't go over here. Not to mention, it's not outperforming Poison Bomb at the moment. Although I won't be talking about all the options you have as a Sin Rogue, I will be talking about the differences between the raid build and the dungeon build, or the single target versus AoE, since the builds don't have to be restricted to a specific content as long as you understand what their strong points are. Everything in this video is to give you a framework on which to build your rogue upon, and it's a pretty solid framework as far as frameworks go. If you want 100% accuracy on everything, you will need to sim, and when you are done, sim some more. This is BFA. It's not the most ideal way to gear up, or any form of ideal to be honest, but it's what we have. As such, we will continue with the so-called framework. For the stats, you have two priorities. In raid, you want agility on top of everything else, aka eye level, followed by haste and crit, with mastery and versatility lower down the priority list. Fighting in single target, you will find that energy starvation can be a thing, and haste works well to counteract that. Plus, more haste synergizes with the first talent you picked as well as other assassination mechanics. For AoE or dungeons in general, you want to go with agility, then crit, then mastery, with haste at the very bottom. Critical strike sims way better when fighting multiple targets, and that factors in a specific Azerite trait which we will go over in a bit. Once you know your stats, either you're following what I just said or you're simming yourself, you can pick your trinkets with ease. I will mention the top performing ones and mostly used by top rogues. By far the strongest is Ashvane's Razor Coral that drops from the 4th boss of the raid. This little puppy is a crit generating beast. It pretty much speaks for itself, and even if you normally want haste, crit will never be far behind, and this trinket is just way too good. Another one you can get is Ajara's Font of Power, which has passive crit, but provides a massive increase in agility that can give you some crazy burst windows. As the name suggests, you get this from the last boss of the raid. Although the trinkets above work wonders in dungeons, if you're more into mythics than raiding, you can aim for stat sticks like Deadeye Spyglass and Harlan's Loaded Dice. They are not the only good ones, but just examples of what you can get, especially since crit is more sought after in mythics. Moving with the same concept, when raiding you will want a specific set of Azerite traits, and the build has changed a bit since last patch. Double Dose seems to be king at the moment, and you want it stacked 3 times. You can pair it with as many copies of Nothing Personal as you can spare, and in case you still have options left, one Blightborn Infusion seems to be the norm right now, as well as a copy of Twist the Knife. For mythics and AoE in general, there are 2 traits that you want to stack as much as you can, and the one you choose to stack more is either the one you like more or the one that sims better, since after the first copy, only the damage portion will be stacking. Shrouded Suffocation is candidate numero uno. It alters your rotation a bit and benefits a lot more from Subterfuge. This is the trait I mentioned back when we were discussing this specific talent. The trait not only increases the damage of Garrote, but makes it apply 2 more combo points for a total of 3 when casted from stealth. Hence the Subterfuge choice, which extends your stealth condition for 3 more seconds after the actual thing breaks. The other trait you want to stack is Echoing Blades, increasing the damage of Fan of Knives and giving you a free fan after it crit 5 times. Hence the increased value of crit in dungeons. When having multiple copies of this, try to get as much critical strike as possible from all sources. Other traits you want are the generic stat traits like Blightborn Infusion and Swirling Sands. These traits can only be obtained from the Titan Residuum vendor, so keep that in mind if you plan on taking them in raids, which you can if you don't have the main ones I recommended. As far as secondaries or inner traits, Overwhelming Power is the go-to single target haste generating monster, with Heed My Call being its AoE counterpart. Unstable Flames is good all around because crit is the best gift Blizzard has given Assassination Rogues. For the defensives, it falls down to your preference. As for the essences though, there are 2 builds you should try, which will pretty much give you an amazing performance both in raids and dungeons. When raiding, go with Condensed Life Force in your major. It's a solid cooldown that you can and should time it with boss phases, since most of the times you will use it twice per boss unless you are farming said boss. Going with that, in your 2 minors, use the Memory of Lucid Dreams and Essence of Focusing Iris. Both have the purpose of working on your energy regeneration, since in single target, that will probably be Assassination's biggest weakness, and once dealt with, you will see a drastic improvement on the quality of life of your rotation. In dungeons, essence of the focusing arrows in your major will be just right. There are not that many essences that complement your AoE kit, at least not ones that can do better than the raw damage Iris provides. It's good to use on dangerous packs that needs to die quick, or in between your very rare windows of downtime. Although ideally you want to use it on cooldown as much as possible, but that relies a lot on your tank. The miners will be Memory of Lucid Dreams as before, with Blood of the Enemy as the new contender. With the recent nerfs to obtaining blood, it will be even more worth it for you to pursue it. It still gives haste as a miner, but the haste stacks trigger on your crit, which should be more frequent in mythics due to the increased value crit will have, which you should focus on. The options you got were meant to be used at rank 3 ideally. If you don't have them at rank 3, keep in mind they will underperform. Either use it as you have them or replace them with your highest ranking ones available. If you are curious about more options and aspects of specs that we don't usually put into our guides because we main at the basic side of things, then check our twitch.tv/MarcelianOnline stream, where we go over a lot of theory crafting and talk with all of you guys that are mythic raiders and high key pushers to get a little bit more insight to certain specs. Or maybe just come down to watch some WoW. We will explore the actual rotation in just a bit, but first, let's go over some of the major spells you need to keep in mind. Evasion is your main defensive when it comes to physical attacks. As long as you can dodge them, you will dodge all of them, which sometimes lets you ignore certain mechanics that otherwise would force you away. Same thing with Cloak of Shadows, which ignores all magical damage and removes harmful debuffs from you. This is a strong cooldown, again letting you handle certain situations that normally you shouldn't be able to survive. Feint is often overlooked, but AoE damage reduction can save you and has saved my butt more often than not. Venomous Wounds is a passive that generates energy when a target is poisoned by your daggers and subsequently gets damaged by your main bleeds. Your bleeds tick faster the more haste you have, meaning more energy regeneration, hence why haste is so valuable. And another reason why crit is so valuable is because of the Seal Fate passive, essentially granting you extra combo points when you crit with combo point generators. Vendetta is your only actual DPS cooldown that you want to always use as it becomes available. Vanish can also be considered as a DPS cooldown in this build, but the DPS gain is marginal and you sacrifice a mechanic that can help you deal with fixate type situations. Lastly, more rogues should understand their utility since it makes rogues into the beasts that get invited to groups. Sap is an amazing way to deal with trash you want to skip, especially when shrouding your entire freaking party. Hint: Blizzard changed the trash in dungeons multiple times because they don't like you skipping with Shroud. That's how good this skill is. Not to mention Blind for certain ads that you want to ignore, and Tricks of the Trade for those skittish weeks. I mean, it grinds my gears to hear people say specs are 2 button mashers and then never use their utility. Don't be that guy. Be better. When you want to open without the Shrouded Suffocation trait, you start with 1 Garrote, then Mutilate until 4 or 5 combo points without wasting the extras. Rupture, then Vendetta. Mutilate again, and Toxic Blade afterwards. Mutilate if you have less than 4 combo points. Envenom after. Mutilate until 4 or 5 combo points again. Envenom again. Vanish, then Garrote, and go into your normal rotation. The reason you do the Vanish bit is to take advantage of Subterfuge and do another strong Garrote. Only do this if you know for sure you won't need Vanish to escape in the next few minutes. When you have the Shrouded Suffocation trait, which you can also have in raids by the way, for lack of a better option, or if you simply like it like me, then you open like this. Garrote, then Rupture, then Garrote again, and Vendetta. Follow with Toxic Blade and Envenom. Mutilate until you can Envenom again. Vanish when Garrote is close to dropping. Then Garrote twice. The opener takes advantage of Subterfuge and lets you get out a very quick 3 combo point Rupture while still doing 2 Garrotes. You want the 2 Garrotes because of the 3 combo point per cast, since the damage will not stack, only refresh. The vanish bit is also done to get 2 subterfuge garrotes for the combo points that you would probably follow with a rupture if your first one is about to drop. You generate combo points with mutilate mainly and garrote when appropriate, either to refresh the bleed or to deal the damage from stealth. In AoE, you replace mutilate with fan of knives unless you have a priority target and try to apply garrote on as many targets as you can, provided they live long enough for the full bleed duration. The consumables I will recommend will be the raid/single target ones, and since we discussed the stats for single target and AoE, you should know you have to replace the haste with crit accordingly. As such, a cord of haste for your rings will be your starting point. You should also get 1 Leviathan's Eye of Agility and fill the rest of the sockets with quick sand spinels. The weapons will simply have 1 quick navigation enchant and 1 deadly navigation enchant. You can swap them around when in dungeons, so your main hand can have the deadly. Flask of the Currents is pretty much a given with the Potion of Unbridled Fury for pre-pots and intense single target fights. Lastly, get feasts whenever possible or replace them with your best haste food, which more often than not will be the baked potatoes. Shout out to the ravenhole.net website and the Rogue Discord channel for their amazing theory crafting and a lot of information gathered. I gotta be real with you guys, there's a lot of good stuff there, and I was only able to use the basic stuff for you, but if you want advanced tips from mythic level rogues and more options to your builds, then check those out. And of course, all of this has been made possible with a lot of help from our patrons, and we love you guys for it every step of the way. And if you're interested in giving a little bit more and see what goodies we have in store for you, the Patreon details are down below the video. And let's not forget that Assassination is an amazing spec, but if you want the meta outlaw, which after all of the nerfs is still doing the best in dungeons, then we already have a guide ready for you. Click that outlaw. And thank you for watching the video, and see you next time.